Hashtag, please. Just make it quick. A lonely rancher paid $1 for her, then did the unforgivable. Hashtag section 1, the auction block. The autumn wind cut through Jacob Morrison's worn denim jacket as he stood at the edge of the crowd, his weathered hands gripping the auction paddle marked 47. The town square buzzed with voices, but all he could hear was the auctioneer's rapid-fire chant echoing off the courthouse steps. Do I hear 50? $50 for lot 17. Jacob's eyes fixed on a young woman standing on the makeshift platform, her head bowed in defeat. Sarah Chun, barely 22, clutched a bundle of papers. Her father's debts, no doubt. The bank had foreclosed on the Chin family farm 3 weeks prior, and now everything was being sold to pay creditors, including, it seemed, Sarah's indentured labor contract, a legal arrangement her desperate father had signed before his death. The crowd was sparse. Most folks in Millfield couldn't afford to take on another mouth to feed, especially not for domestic service. The few bidders present were the type of men Jacob had learned to despise over his 43 years of hard living. 25? Do I hear 25? Jacob watched Sarah's shoulders shake. Her whispered words carried on the wind. Please, just make it quick. Something twisted in Jacob's chest. He'd been alone on his ranch for 8 years, ever since Martha passed. 8 years of silence broken only by cattle and the occasional hired hand. He'd come to town for supplies, not this circus, but here he stood, watching vultures circle a broken girl. $10. Do I hear 10? The auctioneer's voice grew desperate. The crowd shifted restlessly. 5? Anyone? $5. Jacob's paddle shot up. $1. The square fell silent. Even the auctioneer paused, his gavel hovering midair. Sir, did you say? $1. Jacob repeated, his voice carrying across the square like a gunshot. And I'll pay her transportation costs and cover her father's remaining medical bills at Doc Peterson's office. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Sarah's head lifted for the first time, her dark eyes finding his. There was no hope there, only resignation. Sold to bidder 47 for $1. The ride to Jacob's ranch stretched 23 miles through rolling hills painted gold and crimson by the setting sun. Sarah sat rigid in the passenger seat of his dusty pickup truck, her single suitcase and a wooden box of belongings in the truck bed. You don't have to be afraid, Jacob said finally, breaking an hour of silence. Sarah turned to look at him, really look. For the first time, his face was carved by sun and hardship, but his eyes held a gentleness that surprised her. Everyone has to be afraid of something, she replied quietly. Jacob nodded, understanding. Your father, he was a good man. Helped me fix my irrigation system 2 summers back. Wouldn't take a penny for it. That's why we lost everything. Sarah's voice carried no bitterness, only exhaustion. Papa could never say no to anyone who needed help. They drove past the old Chin farm, now standing empty with a red foreclosure. Notice still tacked the front door. Sarah pressed her face to the window, memorizing details she'd never see again. What do you expect from me? She asked as they turned onto the dirt road, leading to Jacob's property. Jacob was quiet for a long moment. Honestly, I hadn't thought that far ahead. I just couldn't stand watching those men bid on you like livestock. The ranch house came into view, a modest 2-story structure with a wraparound porch and flower boxes that had gone untended for years. Sarah noticed the small details. A child's tire swing hanging motionless from an oak tree, windows that needed washing, a garden choked with weeds. There's a guest room upstairs, Jacob said as he parked. Used to be my daughter's room. She and my wife, they died in a car accident when Emma was 7. Drunk driver. Sarah felt something shift inside her chest. I'm sorry. Me too. Jacob climbed out of the truck and grabbed her suitcase. I know this arrangement isn't normal, but you're not a servant here, Sarah. You're a guest who happens to need a place to stay. If you want to help around the house or with the books, I'd be grateful. But if you want to just heal from everything you've been through, that's fine too. As they walked toward the house, Sarah noticed a small wooden cross planted near the porch, a marker for a beloved dog, she guessed. Everything about this place spoke of love lost and carefully preserved. Why? she asked as Jacob unlocked the front door. Why would you do this for a stranger? Jacob paused, his hand on the doorknob. Because 8 years ago, when I was drowning in grief and couldn't see past tomorrow, your father showed up with a casserole dish and helped me fix my broken fence. He stayed until sunset, listening to me talk about Martha and Emma. Never asked for anything in return. He opened the door, revealing a living room frozen in time. Family photos on the mantel, a child's drawing still taped to the refrigerator visible in the adjacent kitchen. I figured it was time I returned the favor. 3 months later, Sarah stood at the kitchen sink washing dishes on the Thanksgiving dinner she prepared. Just for the two of them, but somehow it felt like the most important meal she'd ever cooked. Through the window, she watched Jacob repairing the fence line, his movements efficient despite the cold. The arrangement had evolved naturally. Sarah kept the books for the ranch, discovering she had a talent for numbers and organization. She'd planted herbs in the neglected garden beds and started teaching herself to cook from Martha's old recipe collection. Jacob had enrolled her in correspondence courses to finish her high school diploma, and they'd talk about her maybe attending the community college in the county seat. But the real healing had happened in the quiet moments. Shared meals, evening conversations on the porch, the gradual transformation of the house from a museum of grief into a home where laughter could exist alongside memory. Sarah had written letters to her cousin in California, who'd offered to take her in. The bus ticket sat on her dresser, purchased but never used. She told herself she was staying to help Jacob through the winter, to see her education through, to repay his kindness. The truth was more complicated. The sound of Jacob's boots on the porch steps interrupted her thoughts. He entered the kitchen, stamping snow from his feet, temperatures dropping fast. Might be a real storm coming. He paused, studying her face. You're thinking again. Sarah smiled despite herself. He'd learned to read her moods with unsettling accuracy. The Hendersons stopped by while you were out, she said, dry her hands on a dishtail towel. Mrs. Henderson brought you a pie and some news. Jacob's expression grew wary. What kind of news? The kind where she spent 20 minutes explaining that the whole town is talking about us, about how it looks for a man your age to have a young woman living in his house, about how some people are saying you took advantage of my situation. Jacob's jaw tightened. And what did you tell her? That it was none of her business. Sarah set down the towel and turned to face him fully. But she's not wrong about how it looks, or about what people are thinking. Do you care what people think? The question hung between them, weighted with implications neither had been ready to voice. I care about you, Sarah said quietly, and I know that your reputation in this town matters for your business, for your life here. I won't be the reason people stop respecting you. Jacob moved closer, stopping just within arm's reach. Sarah, I could go to my cousin's. The ticket is still good. You could tell people I was grateful, but needed to be with family. It would make sense. Is that what you want? Sarah's throat tightened. What I want is impossible. Try me. The words tumbled out before she could stop them. I want to stay. Not as someone you rescued or someone paying back a debt. I want to stay because this feels like home. Because you feel like home. Because I think I'm falling in love with you, and I know that's wrong and complicated, and probably just gratitude mixed up with. Jacob kissed her, soft and careful, cutting off her spiraling words. When they broke apart, his forehead rested against hers. The unforgivable thing, he said quietly, would be letting you go because other people can't understand that sometimes good things grow out of bad situations. That sometimes two broken people can help each other heal. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. People will say you took advantage. Let them talk. I know the truth. You know the truth. Martha used to say that love doesn't follow a schedule or ask permission. His thumb brushed away her tears. I love you, Sarah. Not because I saved you or because you needed saving. I love you because you brought laughter back into this house. Because you see beauty in broken things and work to fix them. Because you're brave and kind and stubborn as hell. Outside, the first real snowfall of winter began to dust the ranch, covering the world in pristine white. Sarah thought of the auction block, of her whispered plea for mercy. She expected the worst and found something infinitely better. Not rescue, but partnership. Not gratitude, but love. The town will eventually accept it, Jacob continued. Or they won't. But I'd rather face their disapproval with you than face another day of loneliness without you. Sarah reached up and cupped his weathered face in her small hands. Then I guess we'll face whatever comes together. Through the kitchen window, the tire's swing moved gently in the wind. No longer a symbol of loss, but a promise of family they might yet build together. The unforgivable thing, they both realized, would have been to let fear keep them from finding each other. In the morning, Sarah would tear up the bus ticket. By spring, there would be new flowers in Martha's old garden boxes and a small wedding in the courthouse where the auction had taken place exactly 1 year before. The same people who had whispered would come to celebrate, because time has a way of softening even the sharpest judgment when it comes wrapped in genuine love. But that night, they simply held each other in the kitchen of the house that had learned to be a home again, grateful for the unexpected grace that had brought them together and the courage to choose love over convention.